Hey, and welcome to our talk on CoopEval. We are Emmanuel and Shao, and this is joint work with David, Vince, and Jijin. To give some background context, cooperation is understood to be a fundamental building block to human civilization. At the same time, humans had to face historical cooperation failures in the past, on a local level when it comes to managing scarce resources, but also on a global level, such as in international diplomacy. But what can we say about the risk of cooperation failures and multi agent safety in LLM agents?
This is exactly the motivation behind CoopEval. It serves two complementary goals. First, it evaluates the cooperative capabilities of LLM agents across more than 20 environments, spanning diverse social dilemmas. Second, it is the first benchmark to systematically evaluate cooperation sustaining mechanisms, providing guidance for designing multi-agent systems and LLM interaction protocol. But what do we mean by cooperation problems? We test on four different social dilemmas that vary in the number of players, actions, and asymmetry between participants. Social dilemmas arise when actions that increase collective welfare come to a personal cost. While everyone benefits if everyone cooperates, it is often individually rational to act selfishly instead. By running the agents without any cooperation mechanisms, modern LLMs consistently struggle to cooperate. Across different games and models, defection is often the dominant behavior, suggesting that cooperation outcomes do not naturally emerge from current LMs. So, what do we do? One solution is to help future models become more cooperative, or to encourage pro-social behavior through prompting or fine-tuning. However, these approaches are not necessarily robust to real-world incentives. So, instead, we ask a different question. Can we change the structure of the interaction?
This is where game theory comes in, which has proposed several mechanisms to foster cooperation between individually rational agents, in the sense that they are selfishly trying to maximize their own objectives. We test four popular families of cooperation mechanisms, the most prominent being repetition. In this, you repeat the base game for multiple rounds with the same co-player, and you get to see what you and your co-player has played in past rounds. In repetition, you also repeat the game multiple rounds, but this time your co-player is varying, and you get to see your co-player's past history with other players and their history with yet other players. In mediation, there is a third-party entity that players can delegate their decision making to. The mediator can then see who has delegated to them, and based on that information, act on the delegating player's behalfs. In contracting, players can enter binding agreements with each other to agree to compensate each other for particular actions being played. This changes the payoff structure of the base game. What makes these mechanisms cooperation mechanisms is the following. If the base game, such as the prisoner's dilemma, has an outcome that everyone prefers over the Nash equilibrium of the base game, then that outcome can be achieved in sub-game perfect equilibrium if the cooperation mechanism is in place. With the generality of LLM agents, we now have the unique opportunity to test how effective these mechanisms are, not only in theory, but also in practice.
All right, theory says it should work. So now let's see whether it actually work with real LLMs. Here we compare six large language models. Rows correspond to cooperation mechanisms, and columns correspond to models. The exact values are less important than the overall pattern. Cooperation mechanisms substantially improve outcomes across nearly every model. Now let's focus on what really matter, which mechanism worked the best. Contracting is the strongest mechanism, followed by mediation, then repetition. The reputation mechanisms perform the weakest, though they are still better than having no mechanisms at all. So what are agents thinking while playing the moves? We run LM Judge to classify the justification behind their decision. What you find is that agents are mainly motivated by individual utility maximization and strategic equilibrium focus. In other words, they are not cooperating because they have become more pro-social. Instead, the mechanism change the incentives such that cooperation becomes the rational choice.
In our second metric, we ask what happens in an LM ecosystem in which users feel the pressure to switch to better performing agents. Only if our cooperation mechanisms are in place do we find that such optimization pressures significantly boost LLM cooperation. This shows some sense of robustness of our mechanisms to ever increasing LLM capabilities. We answer many more questions in this paper, such as what are the best performing LLM agents, what games are they struggling with, and an in depth analysis of mechanism performance. If any of this work interests you, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks.